Duchess's Dinner Party, a podcast all about hit social deduction game Blood on the Clock Tower and the distinguished opinions of its players. Joining myself, Mia Gwen, in a visit to the Duchess tonight, my first guest makes a mean ratatouille. It's Chiz. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and where people might know you from.
Hello, my name is Chiz. I have been playing Blood on the Clock Tower in various places since 2021. People might have seen me on TPI games. They might also have come and played with me in Bristol, where I helped to run some weekly events.
It's lovely to have you on board. My second guest has taken part in 16 ballroom dancing competitions. It's Phil. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and where people might know you from.
Hello, yeah, I'm Phil. I'm the Phil that hangs around with 4 L's at the end of my name. I actually met Chiz in Bristol, and that's how I became a bit more involved in the Clock Tower community. I play occasionally on Patters and Narif's games, and yeah, I've sort of just been around in the last couple of years or so, if you do know me.
Well, it's delightful to have you both here. Chiz, would you like to go ahead and share your opinion first?
Now, I know what everyone's expecting me to say. So I'm not going to say it. I've decided to go for something as controversial as possible, so I've started as early as I can, and I'd like to offer the opinion, Rule 1 doesn't mean what you think it means. And I will confess, I got my husband to run upstairs, pull out the explaining the rules sheet from my grimoire, and just hand it to me so that I don't misremember. So I think
Yeah, I just looked it up on the
Oh, yeah.
wiki.
That means having multiple things open at once. I'm old. For starters, there's a tendency to say it the way I was going to say it, which is anyone may say anything at any time. It's strictly you may say whatever you want at any time. The way that there's several layers to this, and it's mainly just an excuse for me to start offering thoughts about over-talking and groups and what makes for a nice, friendly group where everyone feels like they can say anything at any time versus a group where one person is saying everything all the time. And I think I've probably given away where I'm leaning there. It's a really useful thing to say to new players because a new player generally, with some exceptions, a new player will generally be sitting in a game going, what the hell have I signed up for? Is this really going to be 2 hours? Am I going to be left feeling like a complete imposter? And occasionally, depending on who persuaded them to come there and whether they're my husband or not, what the hell am I doing being surrounded by all of these nerds? So then it's vitally important to tell them this is a talking game. You need to get involved. You need to participate. There comes a point, and I think subconsciously we all know this, where done well, Rule 1 means you are all responsible, or we are all responsible, for making a game where everyone feels like they can talk. And as much as there's some give and some take, recognise subconsciously, or at least actually, no, never mind subconsciously, overtly, I think we all recognise that a lot of that involves a lot of listening, a lot of working on a sort of group consensus so that everybody feels they know when they can chime in. It's very notable sometimes when you switch groups that there's just a different pattern between different groups of people. Some of them, for example, would have taken all of these pauses I'm leaving in my sentences and just taking it as, oh, he's paused for breath, that's time to jump in. And then in others, if there was even a whisper of that, we'd have about 5 minutes of no, after you, no, after you, no, after you. And I'm not trying to say all of this without any value judgment. Both of those groups are fine. But the thing I think that often gets downplayed when people discuss being able to say anything at any time, like, for example, honey, can you let the cat in, please? Thank you. Sorry, she's pawing at the window. It's very cute. I think what often gets left out is the idea of that needing to find a rhythm that works, needing to find a dynamic that works. And there's all sorts of stuff in the almanac about it, which most of the time people don't comment on because not everybody reads the almanac every day. I confess I pulled it out specially for this just to make sure that I wasn't going to tie myself in knots. And it touches on it. And then, of course, finally, I'm going to say the really obvious part. And I know that nobody thinks this really, but occasionally I'll hear it said in jest. There is the occasional, let's say a straw man who offers the idea that Rule 1 means that they personally can say anything they like. And that we can throw all sort of paradoxes of freedom of speech out of the window. I don't think that that's actually a very realistic person very often. I'm happy to say Clock Tower is a lovely community where people do not go around trying to upset each other on purpose. But there is just that sort of whisper of needing to remind ourselves. And I think I'm going to talk myself in circles here, so I hope that makes some sense.
My first question for you is, I think what you're sort of talking about there is sort of social rules and social dynamics, and I put it to you that the almanac isn't responsible for those. So when it says Rule 1 is you can say whatever you want at any point, that's it giving the space for people to not so that no one can turn around and go, oh well, according to Rule 4 I'm allowed to speak now and you can't speak. It's saying that, like, maybe a better way of saying it, or a better way of phrasing the rule is that it's saying adhere to the social rules of the space you're playing in or the group that you're playing with.
I think that's fair. I'm going to be a pedant, though, because there is what is life without pedantry? The Almanac does have sections on the social dynamics. It's page 28, great storytelling, running things smoothly. But that does talk about exactly what you're describing. And the thing about, I suppose the thing really is that this is a social deduction game. There is, yes, you could be talking more about the social dynamic, but ultimately there is no game without the social dynamic. We can't treat it as on the basis that there are the mechanical rules which go straightforwardly and smoothly, and then there are the social rules which are up to us all by group consensus. We do have to acknowledge the idea that there are social rules, and whether we're doing it overtly or implicitly, we're setting a bunch of expectations for ourselves, and we're either openly discussing sort of what is and isn't okay in terms of how we talk to each other or how we talk over each other, or we're just trying to all assume that we'll fall into the same pattern by default. And often, I mean, because humans are clever social animals, often that does happen. But I think sometimes it's useful to take a step back and actually talk about, okay, what are we doing? How are we doing it? I think this comes up... sorry, I'm giving far too long an answer, and there's probably other questions. But I think possibly the best example where it comes up is when you talk about voting and nominations. Personally, I'm a very big believer in short accusations, snappy defences, a phrase that I'll often throw in if I'm running games for beginners, is just a word of advice. If it takes you more than one breath to say your accusation or your defence, then you've probably gone on talking for too long, with the cheesy intake of breath included, because I'm nothing if not a no-performing diva. But I tend to go for that. I tend to be a very big stickler for the idea that there's no such thing as pertinent info. There is a defense. I mean, to be honest, the Almanac doesn't really give much people accusing. Sorry, I have a kitty who is trying to climb on the keyboard right now, who also very much believes that Rule 1 is all about her getting to say what she wants. Yeah, the pertinent info, it's something some people insist on. Some groups really need it. Some people have an enormous feeling of pressure to chime in their 2 cents. Other groups manage to do without. Again, I have my own preference, but I think the thing that is damaging is if people don't have a shared expectation of whether it will or won't be allowed. And again, I think that's something where you have to go sort of beyond just there's this one rule that says everyone can say anything, and more. My husband's rattling the Dreamies packet so that she'll jump away. And more into a sort of shared understanding of sort of who's going to have the platform and at what point. My husband insists that I say other brands of Dreamies are available.
I think you touched on something there that I think explains this rule, which was you said that you like to remind players that you should have short accusations and snappy defenses. I put it to you that when players are learning Rule 1, it's in the situation where they've come along to a board game night at the local board game cafe. They're not really sure what this thing is. There is a lot for them to take in. in, and those 4 rules are short and snappy to help players memorize them. And I think that while I think there is perhaps a benefit to, as a group or as like a group that meets up, having perhaps like a code of conduct. I've seen groups that do this. They have like lovely, you can do this in a game, you shouldn't do this in a game kind of thing. Having a new player show up and be like handed a table of like, you can say this, you can't say this, would put off so many players that no one would ever play.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I am absolutely not faulting the before the game starts sheet. It's a fantastic resource. Again, this is going to sound like I'm being very patronising, paternalistic, because I am. But if you ever give one piece of advice to somebody who says they're storytelling for the first time, it's use the damn sheet. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's exactly the function it serves. It's their first. The first and most important thing for a new player to understand is this is a space where they can be as involved as any other player in the game. There are no right or wrong ways for them to go about it. They are hopefully, if the storyteller's doing the right thing, they are playing Trouble Brewing. And that's, it's a great script from full stop, but one of the things that's great about it is that it's very much not optimizable. There's no right or wrong thing for them to do. They can be as honest or as deceptive as they like. There are great reasons for either. They can, there are no end to the things that new players will do in Trouble Brewing. You suddenly take a step back and go, oh, that's actually working brilliantly for you. That's exactly the function it's doing. And I agree. You can't hand people a large list of these are the do's and don'ts. What you can do is hopefully, as your players keep coming back and as your group keeps on going, is try and have a sort of active conversation about when's the best way to broach a subject to a player. How exactly do we go about doing stuff in the night phase? Are we actually tired of playing French toast? No, of course we're not. And this is something very specific to our venue, but I assume we're not the only people in the world who have this set up. We tend to play in a lovely place, which we're very, very blessed that we have a high turnout frequently. It does, however, contain some rooms that are pretty much entirely underground, with very reflective floor tiling, very sound reflective ceilings and walls, and a thin velvet curtain between two different rooms in which 2 different games are being played. We have to evolve to a state where one town can play and the other town can hear themselves. And sometimes that involves some very careful synchronization between storytellers. Sometimes it involves just sort of gentle reminders to each other to be nice. Sometimes it involves everyone in question just sort of pausing a bit and waiting for the other town to get past the fact that somehow both twins have been the snake charmer during the same game. But yeah, it's very much it's a gentle ramp in thing. I absolutely agree. Rule 1 says Rule 1 is worded the way it is for excellent reasons. I'm also very, very much aware of the paradox that I'm talking about the importance of one person not talking constantly whilst I talk constantly.
I don't think you're talking too constantly too much. Like you covered that. I think you're explaining this from the position of someone who is new to the game, and that is absolutely fine to be explaining it in this sort of way because that's what it's effectively there for to do. So I don't think you're over explaining it too much in any way. I agree with everything you said, especially to do with the fact that we go to the same venue. It's important, I think, to know that there's always this place to go back to if things do get too out of hand. And I think as you become more experienced in especially public games where you're in person, you will find out what the vibe of that game is and you will discover how that group works together. And you'll get people who have played together for 2.5, 3, 4, 5 years at this point. And you get people who've joined in 6 months through and you won't be able to tell the difference because, they all have the same way of going about it with each other. Yeah.
Thank you. You can tell me I've been doing absolutely everything, though I don't know why I'm saying that venue in code like I've got a knot and
replay in Bristol.
It's replay on Cheltenham Road, Bristol, near the Arches, every Wednesday except the last in the month from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Everyone's welcome.
It is a nice venue.
It's a great venue.
It is wonderful.
Yeah, Mia, you joined just a couple of weeks ago, didn't you?
Yeah, it was good fun.
Oh, yes. Yes, you got to experience the noisy room yourself.
And the Velvet Curtain.
All great things to experience.
To be honest, actually, those two games were quite timid compared to some of the, for lack of a better word, atrocities that can take place in some of the customs that take place in that room. All good fun, and everyone, if the volume does increase, it's normally because everybody is just having an absolute blast and enjoying themselves in the midst of a game rather than anything bad particularly happening. But yeah,
I do play a venue loading bar in London where we also play in a basement area, and it's basically like a really long corridor underground. So we usually do a town at either end. It's always really fun when like something big happens in one town because you'll often get like cheers or something like that, and you can hear it in the other town, and then all of a sudden the other town just starts cheering, which is always just really fun and silly when it happens.
I know it's a cliche, but nonetheless, it's never not funny when somebody from one town gossips in the other.
We had a game recently where Ellen just came over and was like, "Hi guys, I'm the Serenovus. Everyone in my town knows it, so I figured I'd let you all know as well." And that was just great.
we often get it where two people with the same name are in either town, and you'll hear that the person who has the matching name in the other town get executed, or they die in the night or something, and there'll always be some sort of spoof of, "Oh no, oh well, anyway," and then you just pretend that this happened to them in that sort of town.
I will just get us back on topic, and I want to ask then, Chiz, is there a better way to rephrase Rule 1? I don't think that's necessarily what you're getting at here, but I wanna know if you think that there is, off the top of your head, maybe not, maybe slight rewording or rephrasing of it.
I think in terms of should it be rephrased, absolutely not. For the reasons that you've said, it's there for new players to understand in that context, and specifically, I think that's why it was useful to drag out and say it's not anyone may say anything at any time. It's you, the person to whom I'm explaining these rules for the first time, may say anything at any time. I think for experienced players, I think perhaps the thing the thing that we should be bearing in mind is everyone should feel like they are able to say anything at any time.
Yeah, which is all entirely reliant on the group that you're playing with, and hopefully, even if you are new and you're struggling to find the best places to speak, or find the best points to give information, or find the best times to even just accuse somebody, hopefully you're able to find that quickly in the group, because the group have been kind enough to give you a chance.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh God, you're suddenly making me realise there was a whole load of stuff I was going to say about sort of fun ways and unfun ways that you can tunnel on somebody or you can publicly accuse them. But honestly, it's all so context dependent.
Yeah,
I think it's like what you're saying. Groups have got to find what works for everyone in them.
Yeah, you'll always get the people who have played together a lot, and there will be in-jokes, there will be previous years' worth of conversations that will be referenced, different games that will be referenced in time. Like Chiz and I are very familiar with the infamous Callum marionette games at Bristol that get referenced regularly. You'll fit in. You'll find the pace. You'll find the time that feels right, and hopefully it means that you'll keep coming back and playing.
I suppose the other thing, just to throw in quickly before we finish, is finding the right rhythm, finding a situation where everyone can feel like they can talk at any time. It takes time, it takes patience. I did a big essay at one point that I occasionally republished to people on over talking, and one of the big things I emphasised in that was be forgiving, because it takes trial and error to get there. So you've got to be able to get past the errors when they do happen.
Okay, so yeah, my opinion is this one's a bit more specifically something within a game, but I think it's preferable as the demon to never tell somebody that they're the marionette.
Phil and Chiz, you seem to have swapped opinions.
I swear Phil came up with this entirely of his own accord, and the fact that that next to me has nothing to do with it. In fairness, sorry, I'm not going to be able to argue against this one. Phil, your
I
opinion. You go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure we've had this conversation already, Chiz. I bring it up every single time. Marionettes come up as conversations of how to play them and how to play with them. There seems to be, or from my experience anyway, people have different points that they would like to tell the marionette that they're the marionette. There's a thing that like, oh, it needs to be done at the last minute so that you can metaphorically string them along as long as you need to and then switch around all of a sudden. For me, that loses the essence of what the marionette is there to achieve. I don't know if it still is, but I believe at one point it was the most successful minion on the app when it was being tracked. Mia will probably correct me on that or not. But yeah, it's... For me, the marionette is always better if they have no idea that they are the marionette at any point in the game. And it's more of a social game and more of a social interaction if they are a character that's not working properly, or if there's a character whose ability is working incorrectly, then that sows more doubt into them, which, as the demon, should help you because it confuses the general consensus of town at that point and focuses on them. So that's my opinion, is that the demon should never tell the marionette, because win or lose, I think is the more fun way to play it as well.
So I agree with this to an extent, but my position as a marionette, and I'm in the like, don't tell me I'm the marionette camp, but I also had the caveat, if I come asking, am I the marionette? It's probably in your best interest to tell me, because if I'm asking, I probably have some sort of information that's gonna blow our team up if I share it. So I need to check if I can share that or not. Now, there's an element of like, oh, then just don't share it. But I think that marionette can be damning up to a point, but there is a point where I think as a player, you should just either figure out you're the marionette or just start playing as though you are not the marionette. I think clinging onto that fear for the entire game is not as good. And I agree with like not telling marionette. But I think that if someone is actively asking, it's a sign that you should probably tell them.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. If someone comes up and asks if they're my marionette, I will almost always exclusively say yes, regardless of what side they're sitting on me. If both people either side of me playing a game come and ask if they are the marionette, I will tell both of them they are the marionette. They will probably not be in that case, because in most of those cases I will probably be a good player. However, I just think there's more recently, this might just be my personal way of playing, but more recently I've been trying to play more on socials rather than just constructing information entirely, and actually trying to see how people play and watch voting patterns and just trying to like earn more on the social side of things. And I think the marionette's peak fun, especially when you are a demon, is to use that to your advantage and try and explain a way that no, there's no possible way they can be the marionettes, because how could you be a demon? And then it just opens up a more interesting route of how good is your bluffing and how good is your manipulation of the information around, to again sow that doubt a little bit more and thus make the marionette even stronger. Because if they can then look at their information and say, oh, this is really strange, however the person next to it, they can't possibly be the demon, and the person on the other side of me is now dead, oh, there's no way I can be the marionette, so it must be XYZ person on the other side of the grim, and then suddenly it goes over there instead. So it's just, for me, it's just a really, really interesting social minion rather than a mechanical minion, if that makes sense.
I think the other thing to bear in mind is if I have information that points very, very distinctly towards the player sitting to my left, I say as I sit to Benji's right, then I'm going to have to trust the storyteller at some point, and assume that if I'm a marionette, my information is supposed to be helping my team.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, not every storyteller gets that right every time. It's not always as simple as a marionette Shigenja should point away from their demon. God knows where we're going when we get into the fun of the recluse jinx. And I'm not saying anything against that jinx. It's one of the best jinxes. But still... sorry, just 1 second. There we go. The other cat has sat on my lap and I needed to switch hands so that I can pet her. But there comes a point where I have to trust that if the information that I have soundly points at one particular player, I'm hoping my storyteller's not given a marionette information that frames their demon. Yeah. Unless it's a good reason, then their Scarlet Woman's incredibly trusted on the other side of the circle.
I was going to say, yeah, I think with any any time that drunkenness or poisoning is involved in the game, that's always a storyteller decision on what they think as a global view should be and is the best information to give at that time. And the marionette falls under the same hat of, because the information can be jank and because the information can be problematic, then it's up to the storyteller what it becomes a bit more storyteller dependent. But again, that's where I think the social side of it then backs it up a little bit, because if you try to make it so that the marionette believes that they're the marionette, but in a more social fun way, I think personally that's just a more fun way to play anyway, because it just involves different people. It makes sure the conversations are happening.
So personally, I agree with the point that the marionette is a social minion. I think that's the point of it. I don't quite understand the point around voting or whatever, because I think that just naturally when there's a marionette on script, people like won't vote on their neighbors and they don't necessarily nominate their neighbors. I don't think that's a thing inherent to players that are the marionette. I think that's just something inherent to a marionette is on the script.
It's the same as poppy growers, where nobody wants to execute the wrong person, isn't it? It's the group social side of paranoia, for lack of a better word.
But also just to drill down a bit into my point about misinformation, I guess situations where I'm approaching and going, hey, I think I'm a marionette, is like, I have this information that could win the game, but also this information says that this is the evil team. If we execute them and nothing happens, the information is going to come back to me being a marionette, going to come back to you being my demon. Am I okay to still share this information publicly? Because in that world, the storyteller is giving me information to help my team in that it's looking elsewhere. But at the end of the day, when we follow through on that information and it doesn't yield result, it's going to come back to me. It's going to come back to you. Is something I think that is perhaps missed in the nuance there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. However, marionette usually won't always just be the only evil minion or minion ability on a script. So there's also worlds where things could exist where they're just lying. And I think that's where, especially, like for me, marionette always works very, very well on quiet minion scripts. So things like Serenovus and anything that isn't loud and out there. Just to add into that little bit of paranoia and just to add into that. So yeah, I think as long as the script supports caginess, I think the marionette's always going to be successful, and there will be always more than one way to frame it as, oh, this person happens to be alive and sitting next to me at this point. There needs to be a point where the marionette needs to be able to work that out for themselves and decide what ship they want to fight for based on what they know about the game.
Yeah. While you've been saying that, Benji's just reminded me of the one big touch point of all of this, which is Imp Marionette.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The funniest interaction in Clock Tower.
Yes.
Especially when they're sat next to a recluse or something and the imp star passes to the marionette and becomes the imp unbeknownst to them.
I'm very proud of my game on, I think it was with Arif, where I star passed on like night 4. We had to like poison the Scarlet Woman to make sure that Arif became the demon. It was fantastic.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on evil characters, evil abilities affecting evil characters it's a benefit to the game. In my opinion. But that's for another time.
You mean we can't spend the next 2 hours talking about my interpretation of Vortok's Alchemist Evil Twin and Marionette?
No, go ahead, Chiz, go on.
Oh, God. So, if the Vortex is in play and the Alchemist Evil Twin is giving out false information because it's a townsfolk ability going through the Alchemist, then that means that some random evil player is the true evil twin, or rather the true evil good twin, and they are woken up and told that a different player on their own team is actually the evil twin, because that's them thinking that the third player is the Alchemist Evil Twin. And of course, normally an evil player knows that it's a Vortex game, they know that that's what's happening. But if they're a marionette, then they don't know if they have a real evil twin and they're just an ordinary townsfolk, or if they're a marionette with an evil twin somewhere that's an alchemist and who isn't the player that they were shown. I think I did that in almost one breath.
Thanks for encouraging that, Phil.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
So I struggle to argue against this because I fundamentally agree with it, but I do think, is it also perhaps a more experienced opinion to hold in the like newer players? So we often talk about how like you can figure out you're the marionette. Can newer players do that as well, do you think? Is there a point where your group should stop telling marionettes are the marionettes, but should you start telling marionettes are the marionette?
I think it falls under the same banner of working out if you're the drunk or not. So the drunk being on TV is something that all players are hopefully exposed to very, very early on and can carry through. So there's always going to be an element of you might not be the same same character that you think you are if either of those exist on the script. So I think going into the game, you should already be in the mindset of not fully trusting exactly what you're given as gospel from the second the game starts. Like there should always be, which leads in again to this paranoia, which I think should always exist on these scripts, and the more that it can exist, the better. But I think you are right. Yes, I think being able to work out you're a marionette, or being able to judge socially how the game is faring based on the information that's around you and how it's working. There's certainly an element of experience trumps inexperience at that point, but that just comes with playing games and trying out different things and working out that you are the marionette. I mean, I played a World Cup entry last year for the script entry that had a moving marionette every time, and I believe, Mia, that you became my demon at the end. And I became your marionette very, very last minute because that was the whole jinx of the script. Yeah, and then I was neither you were an outsider and I wasn't the starting marionette, and I became the marionette and you became the demon, and it just happened that we were sat next to each other. But then again, that whole script was built around the paranoia of the marionette, and it was actually a really fun game because everybody was just not believing their information, and it almost became a Vortex game where people were reverse engineering it because nobody trusted that what their information they were given was correct. So yeah, I think it's definitely a more experienced role, and I think if you're playing those sort of scripts, there's more likelihood that you're going to be playing with experienced players. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's a social game. You've got to read the socials as well as you think you read them. If it's a newer player who's the marionette, I will most likely tell them at some point, more to save their sanity rather than gaslight them to oblivion. But if it's someone who I've known for a few years now in the community, and by this point should know me better, then there's no way that I am ever telling them.
Yeah, you have gone on my shit list when you said that you'll always tell your neighbours that they're the marionette.
I don't think I've ever said that. I'll only tell them if they both ask me. It's like it's like a not gate in electronics. It only exists if both points of entry exist.
You are making me dream of the game that has not yet happened, but one day will, when I get to be the Fleck and I can get to Final 3 and just turn to my two living neighbours and say, one of you is the marionette and one of you is the host. Good luck!
Good luck.
I've had an experience of that in a Trouble Brewing in a Strings Pulling, where it was one was the drunk, one was the marionette, and the imp was just like, you guys figure it out, which was, yeah, quite good.
Yeah, I'm the demon who wants to nominate me. Yeah, see, why is that, like, how is that not just a fantastic ending to a game?
I think it is probably for the best that the lunatic does not work. So what do I mean by that? The lunatic says you think you are the demon, but you are not. Blah 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 blah. 99% of the time, if you are the lunatic and you haven't worked it out by about like 99% of the time, the lunatic knows they're the lunatic by like day 2, and probably like 80% of the time it's like by the end of day 1 they know they're the lunatic. There are things that scripts might do, such as Poppy Grow a Magician, to potentially delay this a bit. But lunatics figure out their lunatics all the time. It is not a role that like someone gets to the end of the game as a lunatic and goes, I didn't realize I was the lunatic. And people often lament that. They often say, oh, I wish that, the lunatic worked better. I think it's for the best that it doesn't. And maybe this is a bit, hypothetical thinking. But fundamentally, I think that it would cause. So talking about marionette, I think marionette causes paranoia in the direction of, I believe I'm good, but I could be evil. I think that paranoia would be so much worse as an evil player, thinking you could be good. Now there is a slight difference in that your win condition is essentially the same between the two, which is that if so long as you live, you're probably going to win, in that if you're alive, then it was a 50-50 on the demon in the end, or if you're the demon, then you've won. But I think that if it were a character that like 10% of the time as the lunatic, you thought you were the lunatic, would probably be quite unfun. In the sense that, imagine, like, as a demon, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. There's a lot of pressure on you getting to the end of a 2-hour game and thinking you've won only to find out that actually you lost. If that happened consistently, I think that would actually be a really negative character. So the fact that the lunatic only worked 1 in 1,000 games is probably for the best of the character, I think.
Interesting. Phil, there's about 10 different directions I want to jump off this into. Any that you want to take it before I go very silly?
No, I think Mia raises a very good point that yes, I think it should be something that is discoverable earlier rather than later, because at least then, like the demon in a game is always the most pressured role, regardless of what game you're playing, and because you're the one who has to survive the end most of the time for your team to win. So I think it's almost a mini game in itself when you're trying to work out if you are a lunatic or not. Like you're on a script where, I don't know, there is a mayor that exists and your kill didn't die, but another one did. And then just that little bit. So you're then also playing not only to be the demon at that point, but you're also playing a little mini game to try and work out, am I the lunatic? Am I okay to get executed? Is it better for me to die for the good team to know that I'm not evil? So yeah, I agree with me. I think, yeah, actually it works completely fine as is at the moment. And it's down to how convincing I think the storyteller can be and how lucky some choices could be.
I think, is it worth bearing in mind that Lunatic on its base script and Lunatic with certain other demons can be a very, very different animal?
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, because I'm thinking there's some sort of spectrum, and at one end you have Lunatic Leviathan in a Poppy Grower game, where quite reasonably you could go to the final with genuinely no way of knowing. Let's say Lunatic Leviathan, Poppy Grower, and let's say there's a matron in play, so you've not even had a chance to talk to anyone and find out if they're evil. And in that world, I think probably one game of that is going to be fun every once in a while. I take your point. I don't think you want to go through that consistently. Lunatic on BMR is another matter. And actually, it's all right just to mention a specific game. I'm not going to say names because apart from anything else, I want to know if Schmelter remembers the one I'm thinking of. I have only once seen a demon get to the end of BMR, telling everyone that they are the lunatic, and then during the reveal explaining that no, they sincerely did think they were the lunatic, because some things had happened. An innkeeper had been consistently picking them until I eventually relented and said, okay, fine, you're a budget exorcist for a few nights. And the astonishment on their face made it one of the most memorable games I've ever story told. And I think that was one of those moments of crazy elation. I kind of agree, though. It probably wouldn't be anywhere near as fun or interesting or memorable if that hadn't been the only time it had ever happened.
Yeah. For me, I've got one lunatic game that stands out for me, which is where I think actually the first time I ever pulled the lunatic, and I was the lunatic imp, and I started getting cocky because on night 3 I woke up after my kill didn't go through, and I went, oh, just kidding, I'm just the lunatic, so I'm going to star pass now. And I was told I also had a lunatic pick someone else, and I was like, okay, yeah, fine, you're just telling me that. So I star passed. I was the demon. I was genuinely the demon that just star passed on night 3 for no reason after no heat being on me whatsoever. So, like, in a similar vein to, I guess, the marionettes we just spoken about, I think is more of an experience thing of whether you can work it out or not, and how quickly you can work out whether you are the lunatic, depending on how well the whole charade of you being the demon has been sold to you at various points, and how, again, lucky the information is surrounding it. So, yeah, no, I think that there is definitely merit to the lunatic being good and powerful sometimes, but that was just a funny anecdote of a reverse way that it was good and powerful, because it made me gaslight myself for 5 days of a game.
Yeah, paranoia is, I mean, to be honest, this game wouldn't be fun without paranoia. That's half of the point of, to experience paranoia under controlled circumstances. I've got a desire to share my favourite lunatic game, where I was the Oho, and I don't know what gave it away, but it was one of those ones where just there's a vibe very, very early on, so you go from that. I spent the rest of the game trolling the demon by just picking the silliest things I could possibly think of.
I think also that there's an element there of like, I think, are there any outsiders that like you can't bluff as? I think if it was a character that had a larger success rate, it would also remove the bluff bluffability, because I've had games where the demon bluffs lunatic, and like I've seen games where the demon wins off bluffing lunatic. And if it had a larger success ratio, then people aren't going to be able to bluff it as much or as often and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You often, and bluffing lunatic is inherently fun to do, because you can channel all of the things that you might be secretly feeling in a tense game anyway. Surprise, frustration, exasperation that nothing you do is working. Okay, maybe this is just me, but you see where I'm going. And just do you can do a little bit of scenery chewing about all of the nonsense you've been getting up to. You can throw fake minions under the bus and explain, no, I think the storyteller's given me good players. And again, I think you're right. If lunatics were fooled more often, that bluffability would go away. There was. Sorry, I don't think we've explored this enough. So I've just had a thought that we'll have to chime in with later. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think the bluffability of the lunatic is in my experience, quite a BMR specific thing. Because I think BMR just has that character range on there where there's so many different reasons as to why or why not kills can take place on that script that it becomes a very, very viable bluff. Whereas I think where it can sometimes exist on scripts outside of its home script, that may be a bit harder or a bit more stretched to try and build those same sort of worlds that can exist.
It's the spectrum of demons again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's the general script builder's problem of how the hell do you make a script with only half of BMR's characters when they all seem to need each other? But no, the other point I was going to try pushing on, this is, BMR characters, me being devil's advocate. Can I put forward the semi-counterpoint, which is that while it might be a good thing that it doesn't happen more often, the things that people introduce to make it more likely are, by and large, inherently fun in themselves. So if you think about...
Poppy Grower belongs in the bin. Thank you.
Maybe not Poppy Grower. But think about Lunar Eclipse. That for me, that's still the standout lunatic script. It's one of my all-time favourites. People listening to this who don't know it, go look it up. It's on the script website that we all use. It's a tried and tested one, and I love it to bits. That leans heavily on things like Mayor, Magician, all of the stuff that gives you that extra little bit of paranoia. And I mean, I might be biased here. I love Magician. Magician is the best character in the entire game. It is the absolute sort of, for the character themselves, it's the ultimate just screw around and see what happens, but also play as a social game as you can. And for the evil team, it's just got that wonderful sort of, okay, the rug is being pulled from under my feet. I'm flying without a safety net underneath me anymore. It just introduces, again, that bit more fear into the role, which is great. So I think storytellers trying to fool lunatics is still inherently fun.
I would push back on like Magician as well. I accept Magician as a compromise between Poppy Grower, but fundamentally I don't enjoy either of them. Just because it shakes that aspect of an informed minority against an uninformed majority up too much, in my opinion. But that is potentially a tangent.
Well, it's different tastes maybe then. Yes, I clearly I just don't like being informed.
I am very much of the evil team, the less time you spend together, the less evil you look whilst you're together. And then you get into the realm of, these are my bluffs and my bluffs only.
It's probably not true anymore, but there was a long period when Poppy Grower first got introduced, back in the day when they were releasing Kickstarter characters one at a time. There was a period where Poppy Grower, the statistics people could collect, actually gave the evil team an advantage because people had all got very good at... It was back in the days of mostly online play, and people had all got very good at whisper tracking and very good at looking at who was backing up who. And it just completely disrupted all of those norms. And suddenly, I've just realised my opinion should have been there's no such thing as the word meta. Never mind.
You'll have to come back at some point, I'm sure.
Fair enough. But those norms were just completely thrown out the window, and suddenly evil teams were playing in a way that people weren't used to and that you couldn't quite predict in the same way. And it forced evil players to get adventurous with their bluffs, and do things like, one of the oldest friends I've got in Clock Tower, one of the sort of most memorable games that he and I had together very, very early on. It was sort of about the second or third time either of us had ever played either Legion or Poppy Grower. And one of us just drew Legion, walked up to the other and said, "What the hell? I'm the Dreamer. I've seen you as this," and managed to get it right. I don't think we'd have ever had the guts to do that if you weren't forced into it by Poppy Grower.
I think you can just do that as a minion, or as a even as a good player. But fair.
I think I agree. I think I'm going to repeat the thing of it might be for the best that it doesn't work out, but if I'm the storyteller, I'm still going to try. And if I'm the lunatic, I'm still going to expect you to try and fall.